So Israeli tanks have rolled into Gaza, not just for a quick raid, but with the intention to stay. When we talk about an indefinite occupation, what does that actually mean for the region right now?
Right, today's May 6, 2025. Just yesterday, Israel's government approved a plan that could really reshape the whole Middle East conflict. This isn't one of those temporary military operations. Israeli forces are planning to capture and, well, hold on to the entire Gaza Strip for an undefined period. The big question is, why now? And why such a drastic change?
The plan that Israel's Security Cabinet approved calls for a full military occupation of Gaza. There's no set timeline for leaving. Tens of thousands of reservists are being mobilized. And as part of this, Palestinian civilians are supposed to be relocated to southern Gaza. But there's a lot we don't know. Like, where are all these civilians actually supposed to go? And what happens to them after that? Legally, can a mass displacement like this even be allowed under international law?
Yeah, that's really the core of the legal debate. Netanyahu said the population would be, quote, moved for its own protection. But forced relocation, even with that language, runs against the Fourth Geneva Convention. And if Israeli troops are in charge, they'd have to provide for everyone in Gaza. Is that even possible, considering the blockade?
The humanitarian situation is already pretty dire. There's been a complete blockade on food and medicine for over 2 months now. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, more than 52,000 people have been killed and over 118,000 wounded since October 2023. So now, with even more people packed into smaller areas and aid only trickling in through limited southern crossings, how do people survive?
International reaction has come fast. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, warned against any form of ethnic cleansing. U.S. allies like Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia have called forced displacement unacceptable. But does all this condemnation actually have any real leverage? Or is Israel just going to move forward anyway?
There's also a political angle here. Some critics argue Netanyahu's doing this to keep his coalition together, especially with far-right ministers pushing for it. Meanwhile, the Hostage and Missing Families Forum claims the government's choosing territory over getting Israeli hostages back. So, is this really about security, or is politics at the heart of it?
The far-right ministers aren't hiding their agenda. They're talking about more than just security, maybe even permanent annexation. That's a big shift. Meanwhile, Washington's response has been pretty restrained. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes repeated that President Trump wants hostages freed and Hamas out, but mostly blamed Hamas for the ongoing violence. Why do you think there's such restraint from the U.S. right now?
Part of it goes back to Trump's own proposal a while ago, this idea that the U.S. could take over Gaza and help with voluntary immigration. Israeli officials keep pointing to that as a justification for their plan. Now, with Trump planning a trip to the region, does his personal stance matter more than what official U.S. policy says?
It's all pretty uncertain right now. Israel says it's talking with other countries about the relocation plan, but there aren't any firm details. Maybe international pressure will force changes. Maybe not. Can there even be a ceasefire when all this is happening? And what about Gaza civilians in the meantime?
So far, Hamas and other groups haven't made any formal statements. But if Israel goes ahead with a full occupation, it'll probably mean more fighting. The long-term situation for Gaza's civilians and the risk of wider instability, it's still totally unresolved. Is this about security? Or as J Street put it, is it just a plan for endless war and a strategic quagmire?
Feels like we're at a real crossroads. With Trump heading to the Middle East, is there any space left for diplomacy? Or are we just seeing the start of a new, open-ended phase in this conflict?
That's really the big question here. Thanks for joining us as we tried to break down Israel's new Gaza occupation plan, what it means for people on the ground, and how the world is responding.
We'll keep following these developments as they happen. Our focus stays on whose interests are being served and who's bearing the cost. Thanks for listening.